Hey, welcome to Notebook Summaries. Today, we're diving into the absolutely epic history of Mongolia. We're talking nomadic warriors, the largest land empire the world has ever seen, and a nation that had to fight for its very existence, caught between giants.
So how on earth did a nation of nomads pull this off? Well, to get to the bottom of that, we have to start with the land itself. You really can't understand the Mongols without understanding the unforgiving world that created them.
All right, so before Genghis Khan and the Mongols exploded onto the world stage, the Mongolian steppe was, well, it was like a cauldron, a relentless proving ground where, for centuries, one nomadic power after another would rise up, dominate, and then just collapse. It was this constant, brutal cycle.
And this cycle went on for ages. I mean, we're talking centuries. It really kicks off with the Xiongnu way back in the 3rd century BC. And from them on, you see this pattern just repeat itself. A new group rises, conquers everyone around them, absorbs their armies, and then, like clockwork, they get overthrown by the next ambitious group. And this just kept going for over 1,000 years. You had the Gukturks, then the Uyghurs, then the Khitans. Each one got their turn at the top. But all this constant fighting had a side effect. It created a land of absolutely hardened, brilliant warriors. And in that culture, the ultimate prize, the thing everyone was dreaming of, was uniting all the tribes. The only question was, who could actually pull it off?
Well, into this chaotic, fractured world, one man steps onto the scene. And he's not just going to unite the tribes, he is going to change the entire course of world history. You might know him by another name, but his story starts as Temujin.
And here's the thing about Temujin. His real genius wasn't just being great at winning battles. It was his skill in, well, social engineering. He completely tore down the old tribal system. Instead of being loyal to your clan, you were loyal to your military unit. He'd mix up warriors from rival tribes, forcing them to fight side by side. By 1206, he had done something incredible. He hadn't just conquered the steppe, he'd created a whole new, unified Mongol identity from scratch.
And with that new identity came absolutely mind-blowing power. The Mongol Empire became the largest contiguous land empire in world history. Nothing else even comes close. So you gotta ask, how did they do it? How did they expand so far, so fast?
Well, this right here is a huge part of the answer. It was a revolutionary idea. Genghis Khan, or Chinggis Khan as he was now known, organized his entire society based on a decimal system. So you had units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000. This wasn't just a military thing, it was how everyone lived. And what that meant was he could mobilize his forces with incredible speed and precision. He turned a scattered collection of tribes into one of the most efficient, disciplined fighting machines the world had ever seen.
So the empire's growth was just stunning, absolutely breathtaking. But it leads to that classic question, right? The one that haunts every great empire. What happens when the great conqueror is gone?
Well, for a while, things actually held together pretty well. In fact, they created this unique period called the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol Peace. For about 100 years, this huge unified empire made trade routes like the Silk Road safer than they had ever been. And that meant ideas, inventions, culture, everything just started flowing between East and West. It was a golden age of exchange.
But, that unity was built on a knife's edge. Once Genghis Khan's immediate successors were gone, the infighting began. His grandsons started battling for power, and the whole thing just shattered. The empire broke apart into 4 competing states, these so-called khanates. And just like that, the dream of one unified Mongol empire, it was over. And then, in 1368, a big piece fell. The Mongols got pushed out of China. Their court retreated back to the Mongolian plateau, back to their homeland. But here's the tragic part. They went right back to their old ways. The unity that Genghis Khan had fought so hard to build just dissolved, and Mongolia plunged back into centuries of internal conflict.
And all that internal fighting left Mongolia incredibly vulnerable. They were no longer the world's great conquerors. Instead, they were stuck, caught right between 2 massive, expanding empires, Russia breathing down their neck from the north, and the new Manchu-led Qing dynasty rising in the south. So what happened? Well, it's almost like history was repeating itself. The Manchus saw the Mongols fighting amongst themselves, and they expertly exploited it. First, they brought Inner Mongolia under their control. Then, when a war broke out between 2 major Mongol groups, the Qing emperor basically said, I'll help you, but you have to swear allegiance to me. And it worked. By 1758, the Qing dynasty controlled all of Mongolia.
And the Qing were smart about how they kept control. It wasn't just about military power. They went after Mongolian identity itself. They made this incredible decree. Mongolia's top spiritual leader, this figure who is seen as a living Buddha and a huge symbol of the nation, well, he can no longer be a Mongol. From now on, he had to be found in Tibet. It was a brilliant and brutal move to cut the link between faith and national identity, making it way harder for the Mongols to unite and rebel.
But empires don't last forever. After more than 200 years of Qing rule, the dynasty finally collapsed in 1911. And for Mongolia, this was the spark. It kicked off a new, incredibly chaotic, but ultimately rapid journey back to being an independent nation.
And just look at what the 20th century looked like for them. It was a total whirlwind. They declare independence, but then China occupies them. They fight a revolution with Soviet help, only to become the world's second communist state and spend the next 70 years as a Soviet satellite. And then, finally in 1990, they have a peaceful revolution and embrace democracy. What a century!
And if you want to understand just how important that independence was, look at this number. This is the estimated number of people persecuted in Inner Mongolia which remained part of China during the Cultural Revolution. It's a shocking figure, and it really shows the two completely different paths the Mongol people went down in the 20th century. It highlights exactly what was at stake.
So, when you look back at all this, the one thing that just screams out is resilience. I mean, think about it. They went from warring clans to a world-conquering empire, then endured centuries of foreign rule, only to emerge as a proud, independent democracy. It's an incredible story. And it leaves us with one big question for the future. Now that they've finally carved out their own space, how is this democratic Mongolia going to navigate its future, once again stuck between the modern giants of Russia and China?
Hey, if you enjoyed this explainer on Mongolia, we've got a whole playlist of quick country histories you should definitely check out. And of course, make sure you subscribe to Notebook Summaries so you don't miss what's next. Thanks so much for watching.